Memory Merchant of the Mists. The city of Chronomire was a place of endless twilight, veiled in a constant, shimmering haze. This wasn't natural fog. It was the memory mists, a subtle, ethereal veil that clung to the towering spires and seeped into every alley. In the city's upper districts, these mists glowed with soft, pleasant hues, mirroring the calm, tranquil memories broadcast by the Chronos weavers. Sleek, silent sky skimmers drifted through the hazy air there, their lights diffused into gentle halos. The air was cool, carrying a faint scent of ozone and synthetic lavender, designed to soothe and calm. Everyone moved with a quiet, dreamlike contentment, their faces serene, their pasts seemingly seamless and untroubled. But below, in the understrata, the mists were thick and dark, swirling with unpredictable currents of distorted light and shadow. Here, the air was heavy and damp, smelling of old metal, forgotten dust, and the sharp tang of raw, unrefined emotions. The mists in these lower levels were less controlled, often twisting into unsettling shapes that hinted at forgotten pains, unresolved conflicts, and fractured truths. This was where the city's true chaos simmered, a deep, primal current suppressed by layers of engineered serenity. The sounds were muffled, the distant groan of ancient machinery, the drip of water, the scurrying of unseen creatures, and the faint, unsettling whisper of fragmented thoughts. It was in these deeper, mist-laden parts of Chronomire that Reese lived and worked. He was a memory merchant, not just someone who dealt in data. He traded in the intangible, the ethereal, the raw, emotional core of memories themselves. His shop was tucked into a large, ice-hewn chamber deep within the understrata. It was a safe haven from the ever-present mists outside. The shop was warm, lit by the soft, steady glow of hundreds of suspended memory crystals. Each crystal pulsed with a unique, contained piece of a past life. The air inside smelled of ozone, old leather, and the faint, sweet scent of neuroreagents. Reese himself was a man of quiet intensity. Lean and wiry, his movements were precise and economical, like a shadow moving through light. His face was often hidden by the hood of his insulated cloak, but his eyes, a sharp, piercing gray, seemed to look into the very depths of the human mind. He wasn't driven by money, but by a relentless search for truth, for understanding the real, unvarnished nature of Chronomire's reality. He believed every memory, even the painful ones, held an important truth. His most important tool, and his constant companion, was Glimmer, a small, multifaceted data sprite. Glimmer wasn't a mechanical drone. It was a living, biodigital being, a shimmering speck of light that floated silently next to Reese. Its job was to detect, filter, and contain rogue memory fragments, helping Reese navigate the tricky currents of the memory mists. Glimmer communicated through subtle changes in its own light, a language only Reese truly understood, complex, shimmering patterns that showed data, emotion, and warnings. Its presence was a comforting, steady hum in Reese's otherwise solitary life. Reese's business was unique. In Chronomire, where the Chronos weavers controlled public memory, some people wanted to buy or sell personal memories. Maybe a pleasant childhood moment, made stronger and purer, to calm a troubled mind. Or a painful memory, carefully taken out and stored, to find a moment of temporary peace. Reese handled these delicate trades with great care, understanding how much each memory affected a person's mind. He was a quiet listener, a silent keeper of forgotten joys and sorrows. One particularly cold day, a new client arrived at Reese's shop. She was a woman from the upper districts, her face pale and drawn, her eyes wide with a desperate urgency. Her name was Anya, a chronoweaver herself, though clearly one who had broken away from their path of controlled serenity. She clutched a small, shimmering memory orb, a common device for storing personal memories, but this one pulsed with an erratic, unsettling light. "I need you to take it," Anya whispered, her voice raw and trembling. It's not mine. But it's in my head. It won't leave. It's a nightmare." She pushed the memory orb across the worn counter. Its light pulsed with a jarring mix of fear and something else, a deep, guttural roar. Reese took the orb. Even through its protective field, he felt the raw, unfiltered emotion coming from it. It was unlike any memory he had ever dealt with. It was primal. Untamed. It felt ancient. He connected the memory orb to his diagnostic console. Glimmer pulsed with a warning hum, its light flickering rapidly. The memory that streamed from the orb was fragmented and chaotic. It wasn't a clear image, but a swirl of sensations, the biting cold of an unknown emptiness, the deafening roar of collapsing stone, the acrid smell of burning ozone, and a profound, overwhelming sense of betrayal. Then, a distinct, chilling voice, distorted but clear, the great forgetting, not a natural event, they buried it, the void core, it consumes, it feeds. The fragment cut off suddenly, leaving Reese in the profound, unsettling silence of his shop. The great forgetting. This was the official historical story of Chronomire. A defining moment in the Chronos Weaver's rise to power. It spoke of a huge, natural collapse of the old world, a time of chaos and destruction, from which the Chronos Weavers had emerged as kind saviors, guiding humanity into a new era of peace and order. But Anya's fragmented memory suggested something else, deliberate sabotage. A chilling, unthinkable betrayal. A lie that formed the very foundation of Chronomire. Reese stood in the quiet of his shop, the echo of the voice still in his mind. The carefully built piece of the Chronos Weaver's rule suddenly felt like a thin cover over a deep abyss. He knew he had stumbled onto something huge. Something terrifying. He needed more. He needed clarity. He went back to his den, the chill of the memory mists clinging to his cloak. He set Glimmer to work. The data sprite connected to his diagnostic console. It began to carefully analyze the fragmented neural echo. It searched the data for hidden patterns. For confirming details. Glimmer's internal processors hummed softly, its light pulsing with intense calculations. As Glimmer worked, Reese dove into the Chronos Weaver's official archives. He searched for details about the Great Forgetting. He found nothing but the approved story. He accessed restricted databases, using old, forgotten access codes he had gained over years of dealing in forbidden memories. He pushed the limits of what was safe, knowing the risks. Slowly, a horrifying picture began to form. The Chronos Weavers, under the guise of helping people, had systematically manipulated public and private memory. They didn't just erase. They rewove. They altered. They replaced uncomfortable truths with pleasant fictions. The memory mists themselves, Reese realized with a chilling shock, were not a natural weather event. They were a physical sign of this vast, citywide memory manipulation. A constant, low-frequency neuroetheric field, broadcast from the loom, the Chronos Weaver's central facility for processing data and curating memory. The mists were designed to soothe, to calm, to subtly overwrite any bad thought, any inconvenient memory. They were a perpetual, citywide illusion. Glimmer showed its findings. The Great Forgetting was no natural disaster. It was a deliberate act of war between powerful companies. The Chronos Weaver's earlier form, a ruthless company called the Temporal Syndicate, had engineered the entire collapse of the old world. They wanted to gather all power and resources. To get rid of rival companies. They did this by purposefully destroying the old world's scattered energy grids and independent data networks. Then, they made up the story of a natural disaster, from which they emerged as the only saviors, offering order and peace in exchange for complete control over history and memory. The void mentioned in Anya's memory was not outer space. It was the vast, empty space left by the deliberate destruction of the old world's infrastructure. Anya's fragmented confession now made full sense. She was not a victim in the usual way. She was an unwilling participant. A highly skilled neuroengineer. She had been forced to create the very system that made the memory mists. To design the void core, the central part within the loom that consumed and rewove raw memories. Then, she had become a liability. She knew too much. Felt too much guilt. Her mind, too strong to be completely erased, was instead trapped in a loop, a piece of the truth constantly replaying, driving her to madness. The betrayal was on an unimaginable scale. Not just thousands of lives, but an entire civilization's history, erased and rewritten. The perfect, kind image of the Chronos weavers shattered, revealing a monstrous, cruel core. Rhys felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. The true history of Chronomire was written in mist and lies. Rhys knew he was on his own. The Chronos weavers were too powerful. Too widespread. He needed a way to safely get more information from Anya's neural echo. Without damaging the memory unit. Without setting off the Chronos weavers' deep state alarms. And he needed outside proof for this unbelievable truth. He needed someone who dealt in the shadows. Someone who understood how purges worked. He thought of the whispers among the Understrata's data brokers. They spoke of the Echo Whisperer. A known but hard-to-find information broker. And an underground archivist. The Echo Whisperer specialized in digital archaeology, recovering data erased by the Chronos weavers. Whispers said they could piece together fragments from dead networks. From corrupted drives. From forgotten memories. They operated in the hidden data sewers of Chronomire's deep strata. A vast, unmapped network of abandoned server farms and old communication lines beneath the city's deepest foundations. It was a place where the Chronos weavers' digital reach rarely went. Rhys used a series of long-in-use diagnostic relays. He sent a coded message. A single phrase, Void Core Echo. It was a risk. A signal sent into the digital unknown. Hours later, a single, untraceable ping came back. Coordinates. Deep in the deep strata. A meeting place. The journey to the Echo Whisperer's domain was a descent into the true guts of Chronomire. Rhys navigated crumbling service tunnels. The air was thick with the dust of centuries. He squeezed through narrow passages, lit only by the faint glow of emergency lighting. The sounds of the upper city were long gone. Replaced by the drip of underground water. The groan of straining metal. The whisper of forgotten data flowing through exposed wires. The cold of the memory mists was replaced by a humid, stale warmth, a thick, almost suffocating atmosphere. He found the Echo Whisperer's domain in a huge space. It was once a main data processing center from Chronomire's earliest days. Now, it was a chaotic, sparking array of salvaged servers. Flickering data screens. Makeshift workstations. And the faint, metallic scent of ozone. The Echo Whisperer was a blur of motion amidst the organized mess. They were small and wiry. Their dark hair was pulled back from a sharp, intelligent face. Their eyes, a piercing shade of green, darted constantly, taking in every flicker of light, every hum of energy. They wore patched, practical clothes, covered in grease and in dust. They were cynical. Guarded. Distrustful of anyone who came from the upper city. But they held a fierce, burning hatred for the Chronos weavers' control. Their suppression of truth. You speak of echoes, merchant, the Echo Whisperer said, their voice raspy from disuse, getting straight to the point. They were already analyzing the fragmented data Rhys had brought. The deep state. The Weaver's silent library. You know what you found? A ghost that screams. Rhys explained. Anya. The great forgetting. The deliberate sabotage. The thousands of lives lost. The Echo Whisperer listened closely. Their eyes never left the data. They had a deep, intuitive understanding of how to get neurodata out. And the brutal purges the Chronos Weavers used. They've used those memory orbs for centuries, the Echo Whisperer revealed. Their voice was low, filled with simmering rage. Not just for silence. For profit. They take the very memories. The talents. The specialized knowledge. Then they put it into their own systems. Their own people. They call it memory harvesting. I call it soul theft. They paused. Their gaze sharpened. There is a way to pull the full confession. But it's risky. The Weavers erased the blueprints. Called the tech unstable. But I've found fragments. Whispers. In the deepest, most corrupted data graves. The Echo Whisperer, their green eyes burning with fierce determination, began to explain. The Chronos Weavers developed a device. The Chronos Resonator. It was designed to safely amplify and project neural echoes from deep stasis. To allow for controlled questioning. To pull out every last secret. But it was too efficient. Too revealing. It could shatter a mind if not perfectly tuned. And it could also, by accident, bypass suppression rules if the target's will was strong enough. They projected a flickering, partial blueprint onto a nearby screen. They called it too dangerous. Erased its records. But I found traces. Echoes of the blueprint in a defunct Chronos Weaver secret data core. Working together in the Echo Whisperer's chaotic workshop, they began to adapt a salvaged neurointerface. They connected it with a powerful, unstable energy core the Echo Whisperer had scavenged from an old power station. The air crackled with raw energy. Sparks flew as Reese, with his careful precision, and the Echo Whisperer, with their intuitive understanding of volatile tech, brought the Chronos Resonator to life. Glimmer, silent and watchful, managed the power fluctuations, its internal lights pulsing with intense calculations. They returned to Reese's shop under the cover of a routine maintenance cycle. Reese disabled the local surveillance systems. He brought the Chronos Resonator to Anya's memory orb. The air around the orb grew heavy. Charged. He connected the Chronos Resonator to Anya's neural port on the orb. He started the sequence. A blinding surge of pure, raw memory flooded the small space. It wasn't just a voice now. It was a full, sensory experience. Reese was pulled into Anya's mind. He witnessed the horror. The despair. The unimaginable betrayal. The great forgetting was no accident. It was a cold, calculated act of corporate warfare. Anya's memories flowed into Reese's mind like a flood. The Chronos Weaver's earlier form, the Temporal Syndicate, had seen the old world's scattered energy and information networks as a threat to their power. A potential rival for complete control. Instead of leaving it alone, they twisted it. They planned to publicly create a natural collapse. To gain immense public trust. To trick rival companies into investing billions in a false rebuilding. Then, to make them disappear. Anya, a brilliant neuroengineer, had been kidnapped. Forced to carry out the sabotage. To design the Void Core, the central part within the loom that consumed and rewove raw memories. She had built the destruction into the very fabric of Chronomeyer's datasphere. Her confession was raw. Undeniable. She tried to warn people. She tried to stop it. But she was trapped. Threatened. Her family held hostage. After the collapse was publicly announced, Anya was seen as a danger. She knew too much. Felt too much guilt. Her mind, too strong to be completely erased, was instead trapped in a loop, a piece of the truth constantly replaying, driving her to madness. She was frozen. Silenced. Her confession, her torment, trapped in the memory orb. Until now. The full horror of the Great Forgetting was now clear. The Chronos Weavers, or their earlier form, had deliberately destroyed the old world. They redirected resources, technology, all for their own benefit. They sent thousands to their deaths in the cold, empty void of forgotten history. Anya's echo, now fully amplified by the Chronos resonator, was a chilling testament to the depths of corporate cruelty. The truth of the Great Forgetting burned in Risa's mind. It was a monstrous lie that formed the entire fabric of Chronomire. The kind face of the Chronos Weavers was a mask over unimaginable cruelty. He knew he couldn't stand by. This truth had to be revealed. Reese, the Echo Whisperer, and Glimmer planned a daring act, Project Anya's full, undeniable confession onto Chronomire's central broadcast network. This would shatter the Chronos Weavers' kind facade. It would expose the foundation of their power. It would clear the memory mists. "We need to hit their core," the Echo Whisperer stated, their fingers flying across their salvaged data slate. The central data hub, where the Chronos Weavers control all public information, all thought. It's located within their headquarters. The Loom. The Loom was a colossal, crystalline spire. It stood above Chronomire's skyline. It was the very symbol of the Chronos Weavers' power. Its highest point pierced the mists. Its base was an impenetrable fortress with advanced security. To reach its core data hub would be a suicidal mission. But it was the only way to ensure the truth reached every citizen. "I can create a bleed-through," the Echo Whisperer explained, their eyes alight with the challenge. "A controlled, high-frequency data pulse. It'll bypass the Chronos Weaver's filters. It will embed Anya's echo directly into the city's collective consciousness. It will be like a waking nightmare for them. A memory they can't erase. The mists will clear." Risa's role was infiltration. He would carry the Chronos resonator. He would connect it directly to the Loom's central data core. The Echo Whisperer would then start the bleed-through from their hidden deep strata base. Glimmer would manage the complex network synchronization, making sure the signal was pure, undamaged. The plan was audacious. It relied on precise timing, hidden ancient pathways, and a deep understanding of the Chronos Weaver's own systems. The Echo Whisperer knew their weaknesses, their arrogance, their blind spots. They believed their control was absolute. They did not expect the truth from the past, from a ghost in the memory. The night of the operation fell upon Chronomire like a shroud. The city hummed with its usual manufactured peace. But below the surface, a storm was brewing. Reese, wearing a Chronos Weaver engineer's standard maintenance suit, moved through the lower access tunnels leading to the Loom. The suit's data ghosting tech would hide his identity. Its neural dampeners would scramble basic biometric scanners. Glimmer, sleek and silent, phased through the shadows beside him, its sensors sweeping for threats. The Loom's interior was a study in sterile, imposing grandeur. Polished chrome and seamless synth-glass walls reflected his distorted image. The air was cool, recirculated, without any natural scent. Every corridor hummed with the ever-present pulse of the Chronos Weaver's central network. Invisible security fields shimmered. Biometric scanners constantly swept every approach. Automated chrono enforcement units, silent and heavily armed, patrolled the main pathways, their optical sensors glowing with an unblinking, orange light. Reese navigated through the maze-like maintenance shafts. He accessed hidden conduits. He bypassed biometric scanners with copied access codes provided by the Echo Whisperer. He slipped past patrolling enforcement units, timing his movements with their predictable, robotic routes. His heart hammered in his chest, a sharp contrast to the Loom's serene, controlled environment. Every step felt like an act of defiance. Every breath a stolen moment. He reached the highest levels. The air grew thinner. The glow of the Chronos Weaver's power more intense. He entered the central data hub. It was a vast, circular chamber. Its walls were not walls, but flowing data streams, shimmering with all the raw information of Chronomire. The city's entire collective consciousness seemed to pulse within this space. And in the center, on a raised platform, overseeing the holographic displays of the city's data flow, stood Grand Weaver Cygnus. Cygnus was the cold, calculating head of the Chronos Weavers' Temporal Integrity Division. Their presence showed absolute authority. Their perfectly tailored suit, woven with subtle bioluminescent threads, shimmered with understated power. Their face was serene. Perfect. Their eyes, the color of polished steel, held no warmth. No emotion. They turned slowly as Reese stepped into the chamber. The whirring of the data streams was the only sound. "I expected your arrival, memory merchant," Cygnus stated, their voice calm, without any change in tone, a perfectly modulated sound that resonated with cold authority. "Your access issues from the Understrata were noted immediately. A regrettable deviation from your usual carefulness." Their gaze was absolute. Questioning. They didn't need to shout. Their presence commanded attention. Reese gripped the Chronos resonator. Its power cell hummed, warm against his gloved hand. "You knew," Reese accused, his voice firm despite the tremor in his hands. "You knew about Anya. About the great forgetting. You destroyed the old world." Cygnus's expression remained unchanged. Their perfect features showed no emotion. "A necessary sacrifice, merchant. For stability. For the greater good." The Temporal Syndicate faced a critical moment. Uncontrolled chaos threatened to break apart society. The Great Forgetting brought order. It allowed us to gain power. To ensure Chronomire's prosperity. It was a difficult decision. But a logical one. They pointed towards a shimmering array of hidden memory orbs, visible only now as their disguise flickered. "Anya is just one of many. The Deep Memory Custody program has been active for centuries. A silent archive of all of the Chronos Weaver's uncomfortable truths. All the necessary decisions. Preserved. Controlled. For the good of all." A chill ran down Reese's spine. Not just the cold of the chamber, but the icy realization of how deep the Chronos Weaver's deception went. They were not just hiding a single crime. They were systematically burying centuries of their own terrible acts. A constant, chilling harvest of secrets. "You're a monster," Cygnus restated, his voice tight with disgust. "You call this prosperity? It's built on erased lives. On stolen memories." Cygnus merely tilted their head slightly. "Emotion is a variable, merchant. And variables create disorder. We eliminate disorder. We preserve peace. Now, stand down. Or face permanent realignment." They activated a signal on their communication unit. Two heavily armed chrono enforcement units, silent and imposing, dropped from hidden hatches in the ceiling. Their optical sensors locked onto Reese. Their weapons hummed. Reese didn't hesitate. As the two enforcement units moved forward, their heavy footsteps echoing in the vast chamber, he lunged for the central data core. His fingers, quick and precise, slammed the Chronos resonator into its main interface port. The device hummed to life with a deep, powerful thrum. "Echo Whisperer. Now!" Reese yelled into his communication unit. Miles below, in the chaotic heart of the deep strata, the Echo Whisperer, their face streaked with sweat and grime, unleashed the bleed-through. A torrent of raw, pure neural data surged from their salvaged servers. It was Anya's confession. Amplified. Pure. Undeniable. It roared through the Chronos Weaver's primary network. It bypassed every filter, every firewall, every last layer of suppression. A blinding white light erupted from the loom's central data core. Anya's full confession, raw and undeniable, flooded Chronomeyer's screens. Every public projection, every individual neural implant. The entire city was overwhelmed with the horrifying truth of the Great Forgetting. Images of a vibrant, decentralized old world burning. Thousands of desperate, dying faces. The cold, precise blueprints of sabotage. Anya's voice, full of anguish and forced compliance, I built the Void Core, they made me. The Temporal Syndicate knew, they watched it all burn, for power, for control. Grand Weaver Cygnus stumbled backward. Their serene expression shattered. Their eyes, once pools of cold calculation, widened in disbelief. The perfectly controlled data streams that flowed through their personal interface, usually displaying curated information, now screamed with the raw, unfiltered truth. The horrifying images. The desperate voices. The undeniable proof of the Chronos Weaver's terrible acts. Their perfect composure crumbled. They clawed at their own neural implants. Their suit, once perfect, began to crackle and smoke as its integrated systems overloaded from the sheer volume of unfiltered, emotionally charged data. Their reasons for stability and the greater good became meaningless words, dissolving into the terrifying reality of what they had helped to maintain. They fell to their knees, a broken figure, consumed by the collective shock of an entire city. The chrono enforcement units, their systems overwhelmed, froze in mid-step. Their weapons powered down. Their optical sensors flickered and died. Across Chronomeyer, the city reacted violently. Shock. Disbelief. Then, a wave of intense rage. The tranquil facade shattered. The memory mists, which had hidden the city in a veil of curated peace for centuries, began to shimmer wildly. They pulsed with erratic, jarring light. Then, with a sudden, breathtaking clarity, they began to clear. The air grew sharp. Clean. The true colors of the city, long muted by the ever-present haze, burst forth with startling vibrancy. The hidden dirt of the Understrata was exposed, but so too was the raw, undeniable beauty of its ancient buildings. Public projections that once displayed calm landscapes now showed the agonizing final moments of the old world. Individual neural implants, usually filtering out uncomfortable information, became conduits for pure, raw horror and betrayal. Shouts erupted in the immaculate upper districts. Cries of anguish. Then, roars of fury. In the Understrata, the anger was immediate and strong. Riots erupted. Not against each other, but against the Chronos Weavers. Against the towering symbols of their deception. The city, once perfectly ordered by the Chronos Weaver's command, became a storm of raw, unpredictable emotion. The silence of the night was replaced by a deafening chorus of cries for justice. The true sounds of Chronomeyer, long muffled by the mists, now echoed, the clatter of feet on real pavement, the raw sound of human voices, the distant roar of newly freed energy conduits. The immediate collapse for the Chronos Weavers was complete. Their control systems failed. Their chrono enforcement units were useless. The loom, once a symbol of absolute power, now pulsed with chaotic, unfiltered light. A monument to shattered control. Reese emerged from the loom, no longer just a quiet memory merchant. He was an accidental catalyst. A figure pushed into the blinding spotlight of truth. He found himself at the center of a storm. A city grappling with a reality far darker than any nightmare. The Echo Whisperer, riding the wave of the collapsing Chronos Weaver network, used their skills to stabilize the growing chaos. They worked tirelessly to filter the flood of newly released data. To identify key individuals from the Deep Memory Custody program. To help them adjust to a world that had moved centuries past them. and to begin the daunting task of piecing together the full, uncensored history of Chronomeyer. Their workshop, once a hidden sanctuary, became a hub of revolutionary activity. Anya, awakened from her memory orb, was disoriented and overwhelmed. The memories, once locked in the orb, flooded her with agonizing clarity. She was a woman out of time, faced with the full horror of her past. But she was no longer silent. Her voice, once a trapped echo, now resonated across the city. She testified. She confirmed the Echo Whisperer's findings. She helped dismantle the Chronos Weaver's remaining structures of control. Her pain became a powerful tool for justice. The long-term effects for Chronomeyer were profound. The collapse of the Chronos Weaver's power led to unprecedented chaos, but also unprecedented freedom. The gleaming upper districts, once symbols of perfect existence, now became targets of justified anger. The illusion of perfection had shattered. It was replaced by the messy, painful reality of humanity. The uncovering of other hidden truths followed. Revelations about resource manipulation, environmental disasters covered up, medical experiments gone wrong. The Chronos Weavers had hidden everything. Chronomeyer faced the immense challenge of rebuilding a society on a foundation of bitter honesty. It was a reckoning. A long, hard journey toward a future built not on controlled peace, but on genuine, unfiltered truth. Reese, with the Echo Whisperer and Anya, formed the core of a temporary council. They guided the city through its painful awakening. They worked to establish new, transparent governing structures, to ensure that such a betrayal could never happen again. The city's future was no longer a perfectly designed utopia. It was a harsh, uncertain landscape. But it was real. For the first time, Chronomeyer was truly awake. And its cries for justice echoed under its newly honest stars. The cold silence of the memory mists had given way to the thunder of truth. The aroma of synth burgers and stale coffee at Reese's shop now mingled with the sharp, clean scent of a world unburdened by lies. What new memories would Chronomeyer create now that its past was truly known?